Hey world, this is Kimberly and Connor Tracy over here at Big Red SEO in Omaha, Nebraska on this beautiful Friday. We hope you guys are doing great and fantastic. We personally are happy little campers. We're normally happy campers, but the sun is out today. So if you are in the Midwest, you might be happy too. I'm not too sure.
I don't know. It was the high 20s last night, so frost on the ground this morning. So.
Yeah. The thing is like, I'm happy as long as there's sun. And when there's not sun, I just remember that it's in the background. It's in the background, y'all.
It's out there somewhere.
It's somewhere. Well, hey, thanks so much for tuning in live or the replay. If this is your first time knowing us and being with us, welcome. We are a husband and wife team. Our areas of expertise are SEO, pay-per-click, and WordPress website design. So we help mission-driven businesses, whether it's small, medium, or large, kind of take their website out of hiding and get to be the industry expert in their field in how they represent themselves online, right? So today we wanted to bring to you two different audit results that we had that were highly focused on mobile design. So if you've tuned in before, you know, we kind of love design. We love making an impact on how we build things, representing businesses really well. An area we're a tad bit different, which we strive on and we're proud of, is that we always put SEO first. So there's a lot of talk out there. There's a lot of different strategies out there on, you know, do you have a website design that has very little information? Do you have a website that has tons of information? And if you've tuned in before, we always say that there's a special blend depending on what the industry is, right? You do have to feed the end users. You also have to feed the search engines, right? That's kind of where this guy gets involved. And so I look at the visual graphics and then he looks at the, okay, where are you leading the cookie crumbs? Like, how are you going to get people to your website? What information are you going to provide, if that makes sense?
Yep.
So today we wanted to kind of talk and hone in and focus on mobile responsive. So really quickly, Connor, which do you prefer? Do you prefer desktop design or do you prefer mobile design?
Myself, I prefer desktop because I've been doing it for 20 years.
Yeah.
So from a desktop end of things, yeah, I would rather work in that all day long. But the web has changed.
Yeah.
And the majority of people are on their cell phones.
Right.
And when I say majority, we're talking 60% and more, depending on the industry.
Yeah.
So
that's important to know depending on the industry.
Yeah. I mean, we met with a client yesterday and their entire business it's an old school business. So they still fax their orders.
Purchase orders. That's how you know it's old school too.
Between different manufacturers and stuff like that. So in that regards, when we're talking to him about, you know, the ability to look up different things on a cell phone, that wasn't a priority because, I mean, they're using pencil and paper and filling out job orders.
Yep.
So they weren't concerned about mobile. Now, if they're wanting to be found on Google at all, they have to care about mobile. And that's kind of where today is kind of led us to.
Yeah, because like the thought process is in their industry, their competition is already ready for mobile. They've already kind of made the turn, if that makes sense. They still do some of the old school stuff, right? So it's that blending between the two. Now, the reason why we said depending on your industry is there actually are industries out there that are not really influenced by mobile. Like people just won't pick up the areas of a cell phone and actually do stuff. In the area where this kind of has an influence, right? So like if you have an emergency assistance, it's going to be mobile, right? People lock their keys out of their car. They have a plumbing emergency, trades, electrical, their roof gets damaged. Like more than likely it's going to be mobile, right? But say that you have to do in-depth research. Say that you're looking at something and you have to like learn some aspect before you dive in. Those are the industries we found that are not really heavy in mobile. So again, like the disclaimer is mobile is very important. However, it also depends on what your industry is. And this is the reason why it's important to look at your stats. Like in your Google Analytics, you can break down and figure out all the way down to what devices are being searched. Is it an Apple? Is it an Android? That influences design, right?
And what version of the phones too. I mean,
Absolutely.
Is it an iPhone 6, iPhone 7? Those screen sizes are different than a Pixel 2 or a Pixel 4 now, the new ones that are out.
Yeah.
I'll give you a good example of a site that does well for their optimization on a desktop, but their mobile is a completely different experience. And I faced it just last week. I was trying to book a flight from here to San Jose.
Yeah.
And the as you said, when you're trying to do some research on things, I needed a desktop. I was looking at multiple airlines. I was looking at multiple different package pricing and stuff like that.
Compare, contrast, 2 monitors.
Right. Yep. So I was doing my research to find out the best flight for the best times.
Right.
Now, Kim arrives in California, picks up her cell phone and says, "Where will I stay tonight?" So she's looking at her cell phone and figuring
I call it gnoming. I like to gnome. Like, yes, it makes him feel better whenever I book the flight, right? You guys are going to get an inside look at the husband and wife team dynamics. I like to gnome. I like to come in stealth mode and like, where do I want to go? How do I want to go? I know where I need to go for that day of a conference or a meeting or so forth. But I just carry my little bitty bag and I have my supplies inside of it that I need, right? My necessities. Of course, books are included. Sometimes the books weigh more than the clothes. Just true confession.
Most times. Because at the end of the day, you arrive at the place and you just buy new clothes anyway.
Yeah, depending. I mean, I like lately I've kind of like, well, not. I mean, if I see something, I get it. If I see something that's like kapow, I want that, I get it. But if not. That was kind of like your old school. So I know that's kind of you. You're like,
that was
if I forget anything, I'll just go and buy it. So that was kind of a Connor that came off on a Kim thing.
Yeah, I would fly from California to Chicago or New York or Las Vegas or whatever. And I would literally go with my T-shirt, my jeans or whatnot.
Yeah.
And I would arrive and then have the concierge buy me clothes for the next day. So that was old school Connor.
That was Bachelor Connor.
Then I got married and everything changed.
Everything changed. It's still kind of the same. Okay, so back all the way to the very beginning.
All the way back.
Right?
We talked about just the other day, we talked about we need to try and stay on topic a little bit within the videos. Still have our own personality where we do branch out, but definitely reel things back in.
I think it's,
so.
Yeah, I think sometimes it's hard because it's like a lot of fun to share. And thanks everybody for tuning in. If you're watching, thank you so much.
Yep.
Okay, so in this these 2 audits.
Sorry if I do that.
No, it's fine. In these 2 audits, these businesses are 2 total different industries, right? One is they're selling a product, one is they're selling a service. The area where they had things in common was their bounce rate was over 85% for both websites. So if you guys are tuning in and you don't really know what a bounce rate, Connor, go. What is a bounce rate?
A user comes to your website or web page. They look at that one page and then they close the browser and leave your website.
Yeah.
Officially, technically, they bounced out. So they came in, they looked at something, and then they left. Now, there's caveats behind that bounce because if they came in to read a blog article and they stayed there for 10 minutes, read the entire article, got what they needed, and then left, you fulfilled the job.
Yeah.
You fulfilled exactly what they were looking to do or fulfilled the query. Google can't tell how long, and this goes a little bit different with regards to bouncing. Google can't tell how long somebody was on a page unless they do something else.
Yeah.
So from that, I mean, if they come in and they look at one page and they don't do anything else, they spend 20 minutes on the page, Google will actually register that as 0 seconds on the page because they didn't do anything else.
Right.
They have to go to another page. So that can throw off your number stats and things like that in terms of time on a page. But the bounce itself, the bounce rate is they come in, they do one thing, and then they leave. And then depending on the industry, it's okay. If they lock their keys out of the car, you use that as an example for locksmiths. They're coming in, they're wanting a phone number, and then they leave. Yep. So that's perfectly fine. Calling a restaurant, you go onto the restaurant website, you look at their menu. Yes, they got the stuff you want. You close the browser. Those are perfectly fine. Where the bounce rate really comes into play is with an e-commerce website. Generally with an e-commerce, they're to go the next step, whether that's added to a cart, look at other products, look at a category.
Or check out.
Or read information about the company. So in an e-commerce website, those bounce rates should be low.
Right.
And low is a relative number again. So it could be down in the 30% range for a bounce. And that might be okay in e-commerce. We have some websites we've worked with that have been down in the 4 and 8% bounce rate. It's very specific. They were going after very specific people. And we have other clients that are in the 80% range. It depends on how much of a net they're casting to bring as many people into their website rather than just bringing in actual potential buyers.
Correct.
And that's the difference.
Correct. And so like in an SEO world or in a marketing world, a lot of times there's different strategies of get tons of visitors to your website. Like the more visitors you have to your website, the ability you have to convert. Well, the area where that strategy kind of breaks a little bit is that you can get tons of visitors, but if your bounce rate is 85%, those visitors are not doing anything. So at the end of the day, something is messed up within the either design elements or the environment or where people are landing. The other thought process with one of these audits was the individual created a one-page homepage, right? So they put the one-page homepage. It was not necessarily a splash page. Splash page is kind of very similar to a coming soon page. That's what we classify that as, right? But they put all the material and all the information in one page. And in the thought process, they were like, well, everybody can get that information really quick and really fast. Well, from an SEO area, you actually want to have different pages broken out so you can index through Google for different elements and areas, right? So in your about page, you might step forward and talk about how good you're at this one particular service. And then you have individual service pages, and then you break those out. Well, say that you help 3 or 5 different industries, you can actually break out those pages as well and write tailored, unique content for those. And what happens, guys, is you feed the search engines to let them know, what do you do? Who are you helping? When should somebody engage you? Why should they actually do business with you? What are you charging? What's your process? What can they expect? So there's different, I think I just gave away a huge content strategy, but the thought process is like these individual pages, when they have unique content broken down into that, you actually can start to get indexed for that. And you're feeding the search engines. You're like taking the confusion out of the way, out of the equation, and then they know what bucket to put you in, right? But if you have all of your information in the homepage, the search engine's like, where do I go? What do I do? Are you selling you? Are you selling your service? And then if you're selling locally in a city and you're looking to rank locally in a city and nowhere on your website you have your city, that's a big, big red flag, guys. Yep. Because the search engines, yes, there's stuff in the background, which you've talked about before called schema markup, which we can help you with that. But if you don't have that information in, they don't know what to do. And then if you have a website that's just all images, search engines can't read images unless you actually tell them what's inside the image, right? And a lot of people just take pictures from their cell phone, upload to the website, put them in, shabam, and then they're like, okay, let's go. Where's my website? Where am I ranking? What am I doing?
Yeah.
Right?
So one of the things that you touched on there with regards to the one-page website, one of the rules that we live by in the SEO is one page, one topic.
Yep.
Okay. So if you are a chiropractor, for example, maybe you're dealing with kids, maybe you're dealing with elderly. Well, in those two cases, they're completely different clients. Maybe you're dealing with car accidents also, or athletics. So you wouldn't put all that information on the same page because they're 3 or 4 different audiences.
Right.
Each of those pages should be separate, and then Google will rank them separately also.
Right. So
the same thing when it comes to the one page, they jump from a top down to the middle, down to the next section. Those should really be separate pages. Your homepage should just be a welcome signpost for the most part. People should never really be doing anything on your homepage.
Yep.
Ideally, from an SEO perspective, if you've broken out the individual pages for the different services, we actually don't want anybody to ever go to your homepage.
From an SEO perspective, yeah, that is very true, right?
Yeah, we want them to land on the specific item.
There's a niche area where you're attempting to rank. There's a niche service that you're attempting to give. And by niche, I don't mean your business is niched, right? It means if you offer 7 services, you're going to have a specific narrow focus on content on a page for one of those services. And you want to grab that person, you want to proactively grab the person that's searching for that specific product. So that's why whenever people work with us and they hire us for SEO or consulting and training, we teach them it like SEO is a different style of marketing, right? Whenever people get to a website and they're ready to take that action of the next contact or the fill out a form or learn information, if that makes sense, they're typically ready to swipe the card or they're ready to take action as in the next 3 to 6 months, this is what I'm looking to. This is the information that I need to gather, if that makes sense, versus kind of just calling to get a quote, to get a thing, to get a da-da-da-da-da-da, right?
And again, different industries. If you're a landscaping company and you're talking about redoing an entire yard, and it's going to be $50,000 to do the work, they're probably not an impulse buy.
Yeah, I would say that they're not going to be
probably not
an impulse buy. They might want to research, right? They might want to be like, well, which stone should I use, and how much does it cost to put a pool in? And
let me see pictures.
Should I do a fire pit, or
reviews.
should I do an outdoor kitchen? Right? There's multiple different avenues, right? So the thought process is within this element. Sometimes what happens is take it back to the mobile design. When people design in mobile, so first off, let's back all the way up. Sometimes people don't know that you can actually have a desktop version and a mobile version of your website. One of the main reasons why we utilize WordPress is there's a special element that we add into WordPress that allows that. It's fully responsive, right? So you can add one area into your desktop. You can hide that part into the mobile design. You can add some new stuff into the mobile design and hide something into the desktop. It's less hiding like you're breaking the rules and you're just saying, hey, Mr. Search Engine, Mrs. Search Engine, go ahead and index this in the desktop, show the end user everything that they could possibly want. But then maybe in the mobile, you're going to put relative information inside of it. So in the mobile, you want to make sure that you do not remove E.A.T content. What this is, guys, it's called E content. E stands for education. A stands for authority. And then T is technical, teaching technical. No,
I'm going to change it.
No, yeah, no.
We're going to change all of that. We're going to delete that section. Yeah. For you, it is. When you're writing, it is. Okay.
Well, you got the content writer side of it. Okay, yeah. Now we'll let the technical guy talk.
So Google has what they call E.A.T, which is expertise, authority, and trust. Okay.
Well, I got the center one right.
Yes. And really what...
Well, yeah, and they kind of go together because, like, to gain trust, you have to teach and be technical. Yeah, yes. Okay.
So
I'm not too far.
For Kim, yes, that's how her... When you're doing a blog article, the education end of things, those are important.
Pause, and then take extra note.
But when it comes to Google, and really where this E.A.T score comes from, where it's not really a score, but really where that analysis comes from on Google is the authority of somebody when they're talking about something.
Yeah.
And how much they talk about that can determine how well their information can rank.
Right.
And then all of that transposes over into publishers. When you cross-post something from our website on somebody else's website, they become a recognized author. That carries a little bit more weight. If you think of it like a doctor, for example, if a doctor writes a medical paper and lots of people reference that medical paper, he is an authority, he is an expert on that subject.
Right.
Now, if he has written that article and he's also written a whole bunch of other stuff about dog bowls and then he spams different things,
so here's the deal. If he puts in a blog article about him traveling and it has nothing to do with his industry,
yeah, that can be a problem. So he has the expertise, he has the authority, but the trust level has some questionable items. So in Google's eyes, they're going to reevaluate that. And that's essentially how the content ranks on a web page.
Yeah.
So that's E.A.T from Google's perspective, but then we have a different E.A.T from Kim's perspective.
It's good. But here's the deal. On mobile responsive designs, what happens is if people do know that there's two different design elements, they'll actually scrape out all the E.A.T content. They'll just have like an image, a little bit of content, and then they'll have a call to action, right? Well, I'll let you. Connor, why is this an issue within Google right now?
Okay, so the big issue...
I almost stole this thunder. Sorry, guys.
So the reason that can be an issue right now from Google is Google indexes your website based on mobile.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to say they don't care about your desktop. They do. But because everybody has shifted over into the mobile, there's 60% of people on mobile phones.
Yeah.
They want to make sure that the information you're sharing on a mobile phone is what Google is actually sharing out there. Because 9 times out of 10, they're going to click to your website with a mobile phone.
Right.
So they don't want to index things on a desktop and then be something completely different on a mobile phone. Now, when we talk about hiding things, one from a desktop over onto a mobile phone, well, on a desktop, you got a bunch more real estate to work with.
Yeah,
okay,
a bunch more.
So you've got multiple reviews. You've got multiple images for different organizations you belong to.
Right.
But on a cell phone, maybe you don't need, the little design with 8 or 9 different images of here's all the groups we belong to.
Yeah.
So on a mobile phone, you might hide that and instead make it a slider that it rotates a different image.
Yep.
takes up less space on a mobile phone. It still gets the information across to the user, but it's a completely different experience. So there are 3 ways that we build a website. One is from the desktop end of things, the other is from an iPad, and then the other is from mobile.
Yep.
And if you use a responsive design like WordPress or Drupal or many of the other systems that are out there, then it'll automatically adjust and slide things into the right spots for you.
Right.
You could, and many people have, built mobile websites that are completely separate from the desktop. It means updating information in 2 different places.
Yep.
That was a practice that was done by a lot of people, including us years ago. But now Google really doesn't want you to be doing that, and they want you to use responsive design.
Yeah, and they're used to actually, back in the day, they're still out there, right? There's specific websites that just do the mobile. It's kind of like an app, but it's not really an app, right? To get the most bang for your buck in SEO, it's actually recommended not to do those. So the search engines want you to be within your own container, if that makes sense, in your site design. But one other area too that we've kind of hammered home quite a bit, but when it comes to mobile response, in these audits, actually, they both had the situation happen. Speed in mobile is non-negotiable. Okay, so like imagine this, somebody's at a grocery store and they're looking to purchase something and they're trying to load your website and they're standing there. Like it's actually, their tolerance is 1 and 1.5 seconds on mobile versus 3 seconds maybe on desktop. You can kind of get away. Somebody might say, oh, is it my internet connection? Is it like something else? Is my computer running slow? Is it an update trying to happen? So these are like different questions people sometimes think in their brain. They kind of give a little bit more patience. But when it comes to a mobile, people just bounce out quick and fast. And then so that actually influences your bounce rate, right? Because if you got like the majority of your people are all on mobile devices and then your website's super slow. And then in addition to that, you're loading everything from your desktop version into your mobile and say that you're really image heavy and you haven't optimized your images, your website's going to crawl. And now, so if they know your industry and they're there to support you a lot, maybe they're friends and their family, or they've been clients before and your product or your service is really something that they want, they will tolerate the speed in order to get to the next area to purchase. But in most cases, they won't. They'll actually bounce out, or what they do is they do the terminology you used before, which is they pogo stick. They'll bounce in, they'll bounce out, and then they'll try to load your website one more time. And guys, if they get to that second load and it doesn't load, they're done. They're going to go to your competition. They're going to go to a different website. They're going to go to a totally different scenario,
right? And
or even get to the level where they just don't even want to buy or purchase that whole thing anyway. Like some people just throw their hands up and be like, that one website didn't load, I'm done, right?
And we face that scenario every couple of weeks when we decide, hey, do you want to go to a movie? Sure, go ahead and look up movie times.
If it doesn't load, we're done.
There's 3 places in town that I use: AMC, Marcus, and Alamo.
Yeah.
And if their website is slow, or in the case of, is it Marcus now with their new app, that there's now a pop-up, you've got to wait 10 seconds for them to show you about some popcorn crap that I don't want. Sorry, slightly off topic here.
But he gets a coupon for popcorn. He's super excited.
Yeah, I guess. I got a birthday thing at the Alamo, and they didn't even have a movie for me to watch.
Oh yeah,
that's annoying. But that's okay. But anyway, so we'll load up the different things, and if it's slow, or if there's too many ads, or the display is not the way we would want it to be, then I load up a different place. Yeah. And that's the same thing with the website.
He loads up a different place and then totally different industry. He'll be like, screw the movie theater. We'll just do Redbox.
Yeah, we'll do Redbox.
We'll just do Netflix or Hulu.
We'll do Amazon.
Right? So like people do, like they do this. Like if they don't get the information that they need as quick and as fast. So what we can say and hammer home, guys, is on mobile responsive, on mobile design, speed is no longer a nice to have. We always talk about speed in general, but on your mobile side of it, it has to load fast on mobile. Yeah. There is no ifs, ands, and buts. Search engine, specifically Google, is indexing mobile first. So if you want to get a jump in the rankings, then you need to get that part and element cleaned up, because that's the area and you can outrank your competition just in the fact of speed, right? There's multiple other levels that go into it, but the speed is a heavy area, right?
Yeah. And, you had mentioned images there earlier and optimizing an image. Yeah. And it's not just optimizing as in the file size, but it's actually optimizing the actual width of the image itself. So on a desktop, we usually use 1920 pixels. So 1920 pixels wide is what an image
when
would
it's
be.
full page.
Yeah, that's the maximum that it would be on a screen for the most part.
Yeah.
There are some larger monitors at 22 and 24, but let's stick with the 1920s.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, when you go into a cell phone end of things, the maximum width on here is a lot less.
Don't let people read your messages.
I got no messages. Everything is hidden.
Let's go. Carry on.
But the maximum width on here, you're talking 300 pixels wide. So if you're trying to load a 1900 pixel and then only show it at 300, you've under-optimized your image.
Yeah.
So for a mobile phone, you need to be using different sizes, and that's where the mobile responsive comes in.
Right. Yeah, it does. And then so the other area too, guys, for mobile responsive is that when it comes to content, specifically, we already talked about what you put in, but the design element of content needs to look different than mobile. So two areas that we saw in these two audits, one had really, really small text on a mobile design, and then the other one had really, really big text on a mobile design, right?
Titles were
like
huge.
It was just like huge to the point where like you had to scroll just to get through the first section of like, oh my gosh, what information, right? So it's important to tuck these in, and whenever you load it into your editor, depending on what you're using, again, we use WordPress, but you want to do a side-by-side to figure out, okay, in mobile, how is it going to look? Okay, awesome. In iPad, how is it going to look? In desktop, how does it look? And then you actually customize based on what is the platform that they're searching and using. And it's actually okay to have like some areas big in mobile, right? So if you have senior citizens and that's your ideal target market, you're going to want to make the content a little bit bigger on phone. Not as big as on your actual desktop though. Like that's going to like jump in people's faces.
Right. And just to jump on there. So on the desktop, the title tags were anywhere between 50 and 60 pixels for the height of that.
On a phone.
And then doing the same height on a phone, it just took up almost a third of the phone just for the letters. So reduce that down. But one of the ranking factors in Google is whether a screen is readable, whether somebody can actually read it. Is the font size large enough?
Yeah.
So your minimum number for font for a regular paragraph is 16 pixels.
Yep.
That's your minimum.
It's a minimum.
So we know that from school, if you do the minimum, you get the minimum results.
Right.
So move that number if you need to. Move that to 18 if that's where it needs to be. It depends, again, on your audience is going to make that determining factor.
And if you're in site builders that are not WordPress, right, they might actually make it to where you can't edit the font size. We are huge advocates for WordPress. There's many, many reasons why. So if you want to convert, definitely reach out to us. We can help you with that. One other area that I want to touch base on, because one of these sites had this issue, another site did not, but it happens quite often, right? You guys need to ensure, or if you have a website, test your pages and make sure they're actually working. What I mean by this is whether it's in your menu navigation or a link within the website somewhere in different areas, you guys actually need to tour your website pretty consistently like you are an end user. Most cases, websites, like once you put them up, they usually stay there, but say that like you get a feather up your rear and you're like, I want to redo this content. And then I was watching a video and realized I didn't have keywords into my title of my page. So I'm going to redo that. Oh, what is this URL thing? I'll update the permalink, and then you do that. And then you like step away, and for a month to 2 months, you come back, and then all of a sudden you see that the page was broken. So this is a very abstract, but stick with me here. So what happens is if you edit a URL in your website and you add something or you remove something, at that point you have broken that flow for that page inside of the menu navigation, right? So it's very important for you to go through and test and clean those up. There's actually a 301 redirect video that Connor did way back when. We'll put the link down below once we find it. But there's techniques where you can go in and you can clean this stuff up as you go, right? It is never a good feeling when people come across a website that has a broken page, and then if you have 2 or 3 broken pages, people don't think you're serious about business. Like they'll bounce out and they'll just be like, what? I was looking for this information. I can't find it. I'm out, right? The other aspect that both of these websites had issues with was updating the copyright, right? So one had many, many years behind, right? It did not touch it at all. The other one was a year behind. There is trust. Wait, again, you were talking about the trust in the E. There's trust in a copyright. If you're selling a product or you're selling a service, If you do not update that copyright date, people think that you're just not even watching your website. They think that you don't update information very often, or that you might not actually be taking your business serious, right? Yep. And where it adds the other element of not taking business serious is, say that you haven't updated your copyright for 2 to 3 years. And by the way, whenever I go to Google your business and there's not an actual physical office, a lot of people think that you're just working out of your home, or it's a side gig, or you're just not taking it serious at all. Then if you don't actually return a phone call or return an email, after so many days, people will just throw their hands up and they're like, I'm done. Like, it's just a disqualifying done.
And again, depending on the industry, you may have days to return that phone call. You may have hours, or you may have minutes.
Yeah.
It depends on the industry.
Right. Right. So these elements we wanted to share with you guys. So in case you have this information, and in case you're experiencing any of these areas, you can kind of go in and clean them up, right? You can learn from the audits from other people. It's one of the themed areas that we have within this weekly recap to share with you guys. And then I would say the last thing here is, on a mobile design, it's not necessary for you to have like a Google map, if that makes sense. It's actually better for you to hyperlink your address that loads the Google map. So it's kind of like a little technical advance. And here's the reason why. So say that you're on your mobile device, right? And you have a map, and then say that you want your map to be big enough so somebody can actually read it and see what part of the city you're in. They actually, what is that thing you call it? They get lost in the scroll hell. Is that what you call it? What's the terminology you call it?
I have multiple names for it.
It's multiple names for things. But say like you have your mobile device and you're like have a map, and the map takes over 75% of the mobile device, and you're trying to scroll to get up through the website, right? You get lost in the Google map. And if you guys know, like in the touch map, like it keeps going all the way, and you can wind up in a different state completely based on how much you scroll.
Yeah. So usually what'll happen is that the map will take up the entire screen or most of it. And the only area that you can scroll then is the map itself.
Right.
And that creates its own problem. There's also, I've seen it with some application forms, things like that, where the technical term is an iframe. It loads in a frame within your website.
Yeah.
So it treats that section as its own separate website. Yeah. And that's how you get into that unlimited scroll.
Yeah.
So be aware of that. But on a mobile phone, 9 times out of 10, you don't need the map.
Yeah.
If they want to see where you're at, click the button and then load up the map.
And or click let them click the address. Yeah. Like it's okay. It's actually ideal in a mobile design to just have it to where they can click your address and it loads Google Map. Like a lot of businesses don't actually do this. And that's the path people want to do. They just want to click and go. The same thing in Facebook. Like a lot of times people don't take the step to actually put the Google Map address in Facebook, and they just somewhat try to type it. And then if they have the address wrong, or if they just type in the business and that business hasn't updated their address, you'll wind up having people at a wrong location. Right. I've had that happen before. I went to an event, wound up somewhere else, and it was not even near. And then I wound up not going to the event because I didn't have enough time to get across town, right? One other element too is if you offer a phone number, make sure it's click to call, right? So like in your mobile device, don't make it where they have to hold it down and copy the phone number and then paste it into their phone. People won't do that. Like they'll just be like, they'll bounce out, they'll go somewhere else, and they'll do something else. Some cases they will actually. Like I go the next level of sometimes I will do it, and then I do this grrr, if they would just link the text and go. But that's one other element too. So if it's important for people to pick up the phone and go, and in your website in general, always put your phone number. Like there's a lot of people who are like, I don't want my phone to ring. I don't want da-da-da-da-da. People want to pick up the phone and convert and call, if that makes sense. So definitely make sure you have either click to call or you have your phone number where they can actually click it and actually get a hold of you. But that is it for you guys. For this week, we had 2 different audits, similar things. If you get some of these elements cleaned up, your conversions will increase. Your bounce rates will go down, right? In addition to it, you can actually start to rank for specific things because you're following all the guidelines that we provided previously, if that makes sense. But in the meantime, we will be back next Friday. We hope all of you guys have a great weekend. Hopefully it's sunny in your area, and if it's not sunny, you'll love the weather. And if you don't love the weather, hopefully you're having an amazing day. But in the meantime, thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll talk to you guys next time. See ya. Bye-bye.
Have a great day now. Thank you.